What is up, guys? It is Gunnar Anderson here again with a fresh video reviewing my friend David Yomtobian's chess games. So, in this one, David is white, and his opponent plays Caro-Kann, which of course is a fine opening. And I think the exchange is actually interesting. I know some people might disagree with me, but it gets a Carlsbad structure. So Black basically would like to do a minority attack, and he wants to use the C file, whereas White would like to use the E5 square, and he wants to play with his pieces mostly. You kind of do some cool stuff. So yeah, and also you can get this position from a London. Let me just show you guys how that would go. Then example, yeah, and it's the exact same position. You'd be surprised, but this is the same thing as this one. Or, well, so, okay, now it's the same, right? Yeah. So bishop d3, g6. Knight a3 I don't like at all. Knight a3 signals that you want to go here, but he just plays a6, and, okay, now what's he doing? He's kind of sad. So he has to go like this. So better would be knight f3. Or knight to d2 is also perfectly fine and reasonable, healthy move. So yeah, knight a3, knight e2. You can also do knight d2, knight f3, and then play knight e2. And this is just some pretty normal maneuvering stuff. Knight h5 is a decent attempt to wrestle away the advantage. h6, and now e5. So in this position, I think that you should take for sure. I'll just play knight takes e5 as black, and black has some interesting options. But white has control over the d4 square, so that's what you really care about in these IQP positions, is the square immediately in front of the pawn. So you can play like knight to d4, and then you can play some move like knight to f4. And you can kind of just play against this pawn. For example, let's say rook e8. This is a very sensible decision. Knight f4. If knight g4... oh, this might be tricky. Well, okay, you can take this guy first. And then go like here. So he shouldn't allow that to happen, in my opinion. Maybe this would be a better way for him to play. And then you can kind of rotate your pieces around and play against this. But knight g3 was played. So he took, and f takes is interesting. However, it does make this a pass pawn. So after e4, this pawn will be dangerous forever. You'll lose basically any queen ending, or sorry, any king and pawn ending, I mean. And these are sensible moves for sure. But in this case, you should play h4, because he wants to do this, and this will stop him from doing it. Now, granted, this pawn becomes a bit weak, but you can just play bishop f4 next, see, if he attacks it. And then your plan is to play knight e3, and then you can play moves like bishop d1, bishop to b3, and just try to attack his weak pawn on d5. So this is how you should play this kind of position in general. Rook f4. And this is kind of a tricky move to play this, but the problem is after g5 that it's no longer really possible. Rook f2, bishop e6, rook a to f1, queen e7, b3. And b3, I like it if you're going to play c4, but if you can't play c4, it's not really a good use of time. White's biggest problem rather is that this knight is bad. So a better move would actually be knight a1. And then you play knight b3 and then knight c5. Like, this is actually, I think, pretty reasonable. But still it's hard, because here white has a space advantage, so he would like to trade material. It would be beneficial. But anyway, b3, b5, a4, take, then knight a5. So this pawn is weak, and so is this one. But this one's also weak. So this is kind of the strategic goal for black when he plays these structures. Is he tries to just say, okay, I'll trade one of my pawns on the queen side. So we traded these. And then white will have 2 weaknesses, whereas black will only have 1. So again, oh sorry. Black only has 1 weakness. So knight to b4, queen to d6, bishop to h5. And this is a big mistake, actually. I would not play this move. Because now he gives up control over the c4 square, which black utilizes immediately. And here, yeah, I just rook c8. Rook fc8 is also fine, by the way. Of course, if you move your queen here, he can even play f4. So black has like total control because he has the strong center here. Rook c8. Bishop g5. I would say is kind of a desperate move, but at the same time, it's hard to suggest something for white, I would say. Like, this position's already really bad. And you could maybe even make the argument that it would be beneficial for black to play a move like bishop f6, just because it is so hard to move here even. But this definitely, I think, accelerates the end, because now he's weak on the dark squares. So your bishop on e3 was bad because it was not able to do anything, but at the same time it did attack these dark squares and it made them safer. So now black can use his dark square bishop and kind of pick up where you left off. Bishop d7, knight d5, bishop h6, and here the position is a bit complicated, but it's getting closer to an endgame. And what that means is that the value of these pawns is increasing, and also just the value of like the relative pieces being like better or worse will be more relevant in this game. So rook to d8, check, king over. Bishop takes f5, bishop takes a4. And here, it's very confusing actually, to be honest, but I think that you should go here. And this position's still bad because of things like e3. Yeah, or even bishop e3, and apparently this is very dangerous. So rook f7. Ah, I see. So the point here is just that if you move this guy away, then he's going to take you. So, yeah, there are just concrete problems with the back rank, and all of black's pieces have come to life. They're all pretty good. Whereas white's pieces are kind of just like, what's this doing? What's this doing? What's this doing? Like, none of white's pieces are really having effective roles, whereas all of black's pieces are very active. And also knight to d2 is possible, but I think bishop e3 is even stronger. Knight f5. Yeah, just rook takes f5. Nice and simple. Rook b2. Bishop d3. Bishop b5. And there's not a way that you can escape this position. He doesn't actually have to do anything. He can just kind of leave his position like this, and you can't really get out of it, because if you play h3 and king h1, he'll just take on f2. So the only way that white could extricate himself from this pin is if he can get his king to g2, which would require a lot of moves. So you'd have to play g4, and then g3, and then king g2, and as soon as you do that, black can just play bishop c6 check. He also has other moves in the meantime to cause problems too. And also knight to d2 is a threat as well. So h4, a5, very simple, just he's going to queen his pawn. Yeah, in this kind of desperation, but it's hard to really suggest a move. a3, and the game is basically over at this point. Yeah, the game ends pretty decisively. So the biggest problems I would say in this game were not the opening. I feel like the opening actually went kind of decent. I would say knight d2 is much better than knight to a3, but the way that you played was fine. And it got to this point. Here I think that this was kind of a more positional thing. Like, I don't think this game has occurred ever. So I don't think it would be correct to say, oh, my opponent knew more theory than me. But in these structures, you should take And then you should go for a position like this, where you're just controlling the square directly in front of the pawn. And by the way, I'll just analyze this one too. I didn't do that first. But yeah, some position like this is just pretty much fine. You have this pawn. He has 2 bishops, so he has comp, but you're going to play against his weak pawn on d5. And then after that, what happened was he got this nice passed pawn. He got his knight into c4, and the position just kind of deteriorated from there. And again, here you can kind of make something, like you can do this. This would be okay strategically, as long as he can't play g5, like you would be okay. But because he gets to play g5, and then b3 kind of accelerated, a4 really accelerated the end, I would say, because now you have all these problems, and he was just able to mop up real quick. So interesting game, I would say.